Actually looking at the specific teaching modifications you will embed in term 3 and 4. So what we're talking about on page 8 and 9 is how we'd actually embed these activities in your program. And I've taken the liberty to suggest some key activities you might want to engage in. And if we actually imagine what this would look like over the 2 terms, we can put it into action. And what I've talked about there are the steps in implementing, and then what you would need to do in order to achieve this. Now, this is by no means all-encompassing. It was just intended to be a suggested possible pathway. And the first point that I've made there is actually planning and mapping the plan you're going to follow for modifying your teaching. And the assumption here is that if you unpack it at one point in time and then think of allocating the strategies across the content over term 3 and 4, you've then got a plan that you can modify, and you don't have to keep planning on the run, as it were. So I've suggested unpacking the literacy goals you want to achieve, working through the new teaching that you're going to use. So you look at the content, you decide what are going to be indicators of student learning. If you're working on paraphrasing, say, it will be how well they can pick out the verb in relatively easy sentences first, and then suggest other ways of saying the key phrases and so on. And then I've said, in terms of what to do, I've then made some suggestions about activities to take. I am really pushing planning, because I think the more effective our planning is, the more likely we are to have success. I'm wanting to push drafting lesson plans that we can use to cue us to scaffold, because I'm really mindful of when I first developed all of this and I was doing demonstration lessons, I actually needed to have on a piece of paper the things I was going to do. I needed, I designed it, but I needed to have my own cue card to cue me in terms of the sort of questions I'd be asking. Now, some of you have seen me, meet a group of kids with but that wasn't how it started. I mean, damn it, when I started, I had 4 or 5 pages. For half an hour, I would have really unpacked. I mean, it's up here now, but it wasn't always. So that's really, so this business of really having the script clear, because then you can test your script more effectively. And the other aspect that I'm wanting to push in that first box on the right-hand side is collecting data. And it's not data where we give students test items, but it's data where we observe their behaviours. We observe what they tell us. We observe what they say they're doing. So we really observe their learning behaviours. So whichever strategy you're targeting, you need to be clear on what it will look like. And that's going to be, when you're helping your colleagues to embed this in their school, a key part of your dialogue is, when the kids are doing it, what will it look like? Because that's going to be important. If the teachers are having difficulty seeing what it will look like, they're going to have difficulty putting in place the teaching for it. The teaching is intended to target the outcomes you want. Then I've talked about implementing and evaluating it, and I think that's all pretty obvious. When we link that up with that excellent chart that we've put together this morning, we'll even have that implementing and evaluating even richer. You need to decide which of the different aspects of the various aspects of professional learning you need. Do you need modelling? Do you need more discussion about how to fit it into particular topics? What are going to be some barriers and some restrictions that you might face? And I'd like to spend some time this afternoon at each table actually identifying what are restrictions and barriers that you've encountered so far in doing this. and how can we actually deal with those. Because if we discuss some of the barriers and some of the possible restrictions, if you're forewarned, then you're able to work with them better. So it's very important we unpack those. And sometimes you'll only see the barriers after you've started the teaching. After you've got underway with it, you'll see the problems, you'll see the issues that are arising. You need to have some way of evaluating and recording the teaching and learning. Often that's useful if you've got a colleague who's not teaching at that moment, to spend time in your classroom recording what was done. Another way of doing it, of course, is just putting on an audio tape and audioing what you say, during the lesson. None of the kids need know there's an audio tape on, but you can certainly, record how the teaching is going. So the aim of that trialling is for you to try out particular teaching procedures. Think of how you're going to gather data from the students, both what they do and what they say about the teaching. What were the barriers and how they might be dealt with, and what are you using as indicators of the success of what you did. And then I've gone through evaluating what worked, what sort of things would you want to change for the future, could the outcomes be interpreted in other ways, and there is a real opportunity here for the professional learning team activity, where you discuss the outcomes with your group as a whole.